I've been told about this movie many times by horror aficionados. Oh, you gotta see Ganja and Hess. You gotta see Ganja and Hess. Okay. This stars Dwayne Green of Night of the Living Dead fame, and of course the beautiful Marlene Clark from Night of the Cobra Woman, Black Mamba, and The Beast Must Die. She plays Ganja. The plot synopsis of this film reads as follows. After being stabbed by a dagger from Mirtha, a doctor's assistant develops a thirst for blood. This movie is so trippy and weird. And it's also very dialogue heavy, but for me, a lot of the dialogue doesn't exactly make sense. For example, there's a part of the movie where Hess has a soliloquy, and in this soliloquy he says, and I'm just gonna have to read it too because there's no way I'm gonna be able to memorize this whole thing. To the black male child, philosophy is a prison. It disregards the uncustomary things about you. The result of individual thought is applicable only to itself. There's a dreadful need in man to teach. It destroys the pure instinct to learn. The navigator learns from the stars. The stars teach nothing. The sun opens the mind and sheds light on the flowers. The eyes shame the pages of any book. Gesture destroys concept. Involvement mortifies vanity. If you are the despised of the earth, that is as if you were water in the desert. To be adored on this planet is to be a symbol of success, and you must not succeed on any terms, because life is endless. You are as nameless as a flower. You are the child of Venus, and her natural affection is lust. She will touch your belly with her tongue, but you must not suffer in it, for love is all there is, and you are cannon fodder in its defense. What does that mean? Not a damn thing. As my freshman composition teacher, Mr. English, and yeah, he was a teacher whose name was Mr. English, and he actually taught English. He would say, "You've said a lot of nothing beautifully." Each line contradicts itself. For example, the navigator learns from the stars. The stars teach nothing. So how does the navigator learn from the stars if the stars teach nothing? You know this is bullshit. Stuff like that reminds me of that Damon Wayans character from In Living Color. The guy that went to prison and he learned all these big words but doesn't know how to use them in context. This movie sounds like it was written by that type of individual. But people who like to pretend to be smart will sit there and try to convince you that any of that shit made sense, and it did not. This movie kind of makes me feel like someone decided to drop acid and then make a movie. Random question, who brushes their teeth in the bathtub? That is so nasty. Like, he was literally picking up the water that he's sitting his funky ass in and putting it in his mouth to rinse his mouth. That was just, whose man's is this? And again with the bright red blood, but this time it's the consistency of fruit punch, and I don't even, why would you do that? Why would you do that? The score from this movie gave me anxiety, irritated me, gave me a headache. It would have been alright if it was just the African style chanting, but behind the chanting was also this loud buzzing noise. I actually wondered if they used that frequency that I guess I remember reading one time that the military can use certain frequencies to make people feel a certain way, whether it's anxiety, like there's even a frequency that makes people vomit or have explosive diarrhea. But I was wondering if they embedded a frequency that makes you feel irritated when you hear it, or a frequency that's meant to induce feelings of unease. You can really tell that this filmmaker thought that they were coming off being hella revolutionary, but it comes off more pretentious than anything else. Like when you go to an art gallery and you look at a piece of artwork and the artist is standing next to it talking to about how he was delving into the recesses of his mind to express the perils of a dystopian university system or some such nonsense, but you look at the canvas and it's just a blank canvas with a dot on it, and you're like, this dot means nothing to me. Or paint splatters. Oh, don't you love those? There's people who do paint splatter work and then try to convince you that the shit means something. Maybe it's just me. I'm not into abstract art like that. I feel like if I could put paint on a cat's tail and throw it at a piece of paper and come up with the same thing that you worked on, how is it art again? I know some people probably gonna be mad at me about that. Whatever, it is what it is. But this is why I can never become a professional artist. I mean, I have the ability to do art. I can draw and paint and sculpt and all different styles, from oil painting to drawing anime, but I can't stand next to it and come up with some bull about why I did it. When I do a piece of artwork, it is, oh, I pictured this in my head, I put it on paper, or I sculpted it out. The end. I woke up that morning, I felt like drawing this. The end. I don't have some lofty story behind my artwork. I just make something because I felt like making it. And this is why I can never be a professional artist. I can't stand up in a gallery all day and make up some bullshit. People will be walking up to me, so what does this piece mean to you? It means I had some paint and some canvas and I felt like doing it. And if you want, you could pay me for it. That apparently that doesn't work in the art world. You have to have a real serious line of bullshit. I can't do it. That being said, I didn't entirely dislike this movie. I'm not saying I dislike it at all. I'm just pointing out the pretentiousness in it. And I feel like when people say that they like Ganja Hess, they're just trying to be pretentious, just trying to be hoity-toity, like, oh, look how refined my tastes are in movies. I love Ganja Hess. It's like, yeah, and they kind of remind me of those people that out of nowhere want to make sure you know that they don't own a television. I don't even own a television. So the what? You must be very interesting. But anyways, this is basically an art house vampire flick. Scenes for the movie. Let's talk about some scenes from the movie. I really was envious of their brunch or breakfast out on the veranda. That always looks so nice to me. And even though I live in Florida and you would think that this is something that we can do here because we have a very warm climate, not so much because of all the dang mosquitoes and humidity. You can only really do that maybe in the middle of the winter time. You can sit outside and eat. Otherwise, screened in patios is your best bet, unless you treat your yard with near toxic levels of pesticides. The elevator in the bedroom, that was really cool. Marlene Clark looks gorgeous as Ganja. She could have held the door open and helped the dude with the groceries though. Rude. This film is shot so beautifully at times. Other times the shots range from experimental to weird just for the sake of weirdness. But it's still weirdly beautiful all the same. Speaking of beautiful shots, I thought the sex scenes were very interesting, and one of the most beautiful shots in the film comes from a sex scene where, this is going to sound horrific to people who haven't watched it, but bear with me. There's a scene where they're basically covered in blood, but the blood is sparkling and glistening on their bodies, and there's something very beautiful about how that is shot. Glitter blood. I feel the same way about this movie as I do Eraserhead. They're both beautifully shot in their own ways. They take a simple story and try to overcomplicate it just for the sake of feeling like they're deeper than the average film. And there's a place for both of them within genre films. I can't knock them for being interesting. I prefer that than cookie cutter paint by numbers, you know, big Hollywood movies that they give us. I will always choose someone trying to be different and creative over someone just reproducing the same garbage over and over again. So I'm never going to fully diss either one of these films. This was written and directed by Bill Gunn. I think he does a much more phenomenal job as a director than he does as a writer, as far as the technical aspects go. His writing is the weak part. His script kind of eventually just completely runs out of steam, and then there's this big church scene that goes on for way too long, and it's supposed to be about Hess being redeemed or getting saved, and in this film, getting saved functions as him being able to give up his vampirism, because that makes complete sense. If you're a vampire, just go to church and you won't be a vampire anymore. But the thing about the church scenes is also, it's like they ran out of budget, and it doesn't even look like they use the same cameras for the church scenes. The resolution of the movie is also interesting. While Hess is struggling to end his vampirism, Ganja is like, I'm cool with being a vampire. I'm just going to stay a vampire. Now, when I talked about how beautifully shot this movie is, let me also talk about the ending of the movie. I guess this is just gonna. I'll just have to label this as a spoiler review because it's hard to talk about this movie without talking about that. There's a beautiful shot at the end of this movie of this green grass in the foreground and water towards the background, and you see someone rising up out of the water, and it just looks gorgeous. And then it's revealed that it's Hess rising out of the water, and he's completely naked running towards the camera. Then it cuts to Ganja up in the window. Then it cuts to a children's choir. And the movie ends. I'm gonna have to look up some film analysis because I am truly at a loss at what any of that means. I don't know if this is required viewing in film school, but I believe that it should be, both as a study on what to do and what not to do. What to do as a director and as a cinematographer, what not to do as a writer. But like I always say, just because I love something doesn't mean you won't hate it, and just because I hate something doesn't mean you won't love it. What say you about Ganja and Hess? Is this a classic film that's just way over my head that I don't get? Or is this a classic film that I enjoy but I feel is pretentious in every way possible? If you've seen this movie, let me know what your thoughts are about it in the comments. Also, if you've stumbled across any deep, in-depth analysis of the movie, please drop a link in the comments because I am interested in finding out what the director was trying to say.